Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Polyglot Grind again. In this video, I'm going to talk about the importance of grammar in language learning. Alright, so from my personal experience, studying grammar at the beginning of learning a new language is a horrible idea. Like, it's never worked out for me ever. Uh, when I tried to learn Spanish, like back when I was first getting into language learning, and I tried to learn Spanish, I had no idea what I was doing, so I remember just going on Wikipedia, looking up Spanish grammar articles and stuff, and just studying the grammar. And like I wasn't learning Spanish, and I didn't understand why. And then like a couple languages down the road, I realized like studying grammar at the beginning is a horrible idea. What you have to actually do is like what I do now is just learn a couple words and phrases, just learn basic things like don't try to memorize words by themselves. Try to memorize them in like incomplete phrases and like just like don't focus on grammar. Like obviously at the beginning a lot of things aren't going to make sense, but like just try to absorb everything as naturally as possible. Because like for example, when babies are learning the first language, they don't sit down and study grammar books. They just literally mimic what they hear around them. That's what I think people should be doing, just mimicking what they hear around them, mimic what you see in the books, mimic what you hear on TV and music, and so on. Because like that's how babies learn, and then yeah, that's how we learned our first language, and most of us all speak that fluently. So obviously, like that's the right way of going about it. So literally, just mimic everything you hear, uh, and just don't focus on the grammar. And then yeah, like when children get to a certain age, generally, then their parents start to correct them. Like you won't see a mom or a dad correcting like a 1-year-old baby's grammar or like their use of the past tense or like the future tense or any of that, because like the baby's not gonna understand it. Like this baby's 1 year old, like there's no way a baby's gonna comprehend that at that age. But like once children get older and they turn like I don't know, let's say 6 for example, you'll still be making a couple grammatical errors, and that's when your parents start correcting you, because at this point you've been exposed to the language for a long enough time. You've I don't know, like maybe you've seen a little bit of it written, you've heard a lot of it, you've heard music in that in your native language and so on. So like you're used to it. So now when you hear these grammatical corrections, they'll make sense to you. Whereas like when you were 1, you'd have no idea. And yeah, like I think people should just apply that technique to learning like foreign languages. They just don't focus on grammar at the beginning. It's only going to confuse you. When I tried to learn Russian, uh, I remember reading about how Russian has 7 cases, and how the grammar is really confusing and everything. And like back at that time, I still didn't know how to go about learning languages properly. So I remember I just went on the internet once again and just read articles on Russian grammar, and I did not get anywhere. I was able to learn the alphabet, but like that's it. I was not learning anything. And then time went on. I can't remember how long I studied it for. I think it was 1 month, and I could still hardly say anything, and I still didn't understand the grammar. So yeah, when I come back to Russian in the future, I'm just gonna be learning words and phrases, listening to a lot of Russian music, hopefully, uh, just being exposed to the Russian language a lot. And then once I have a base in Russian, then I'll go about studying grammar, because then it will make sense to me. Like studying grammar at the beginning of a language learning endeavor is like it'd be like learning trigonometry before you've like learned simple addition and subtraction and division and all that. Like you need a base before you need a base to build on. If you don't have the base, none of it's gonna make sense. So yeah, those are pretty much my views on the importance of grammar in language learning. Like grammar is obviously important because you have to have correct grammar in order to be understood, but you should not study grammar at the beginning because it will not make any sense to you at all. So what you should do is try and absorb as much of the language as possible, learn words and phrases, use them with native speakers, just absorb as much as possible. And once you have a strong base, then study the grammar, because that's when the grammar will make sense. All right, that's it.